And it seems to me that there are, broadly speaking, four constituencies or forces at work trying to shape U.S. policy towards China in this era that is more focused on strategic competition or rivalry than has been the case in the past. And just quickly, these would be, number one, the national security establishment, which is quite concerned about China's potential to rival the U.S. geopolitically and militarily, and they are quite concerned in connection with this about China's efforts to rapidly upgrade its technological basis, particularly in things like semiconductors and artificial intelligence, which clearly have military applications. So there's a strong view from the security side that it should be an aim of U.S. policy to constrain China's technological progress to the extent possible and to ensure that the U.S. maintains a big technological lead over China. So that's a fairly hardline view. Related to this is the hardline trade view, I think, represented by USTR Lightizer, which essentially has taken the perspective that the Chinese development model is very problematic. It's created huge problems for the U.S. industrial base because of so-called forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, the subsidies for state-owned enterprises, et cetera, et cetera. And so there needs to be very, very forceful U.S. action to change the way that China organizes its economy, the way that it does business, in a way to make it more consistent with the traditional rules of the game as created by the United States and its allies. So again, this is a pretty hardline view that's focused on long-term structural change in the Chinese economy. Then there's a third group, which is essentially the business community, and this would have its advocate in the administration in Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, which is fundamentally concerned with market access for U.S. firms. And so this is connected to the structural agenda. The reason that U.S. firms don't have as much market access as they would like is there are joint venture requirements or other onerous regulatory things that make the cost of market entry quite a lot higher than many companies would like, and in some cases, make it simply impossible to enter the market. So they share some of the structural concerns, but the motive here is to maximize the ability of U.S. companies to operate in China profitably, whereas the motivation of the trade and the security hardliners, to some degree, is to encourage U.S. companies actually to not invest so much in China. There is a bit of a decoupling agenda, both on the security side and the trade hardliner side, and the logic there is that having a high degree of investment or engagement in China may be good for the multinational companies, but it isn't necessarily good for U.S. workers and the U.S. economy, right? So I think there is some daylight between the business community, which wants more market access, and both the trade and the security hardliners who are somewhat ambivalent about whether this level of economic engagement is really such a great idea. And then the fourth element, obviously, is President Trump, who I don't think is really ideologically committed to any of these positions and is much more concerned about his own sort of political advantage. And I think has clearly demonstrated over the course of the last 2 years that he is willing to shift his support from one or the other of these factions to another almost at the drop of a hat. So he's a real unpredictability factor. So I think what's been going on over the last couple of months is that Trump, for political reasons, has essentially decided that it's essential for him to make a trade deal with China. He needs it now. He's got a lot of political problems at home. He needs a win. He needs to be able to show that the pressure that he put on China delivered some concrete results. So over the last couple of months, I think we've seen a real solidification of his position, which is we need a deal, we need it now, and I'm not going to wait for us to solve all of the structural issues that we have with China. So we'll take what we can get right now, and then maybe some of these more difficult things will have to be dealt with down the road. And this is causing, I think, a lot of heartburn for the hardliners who would like to see the administration take a much tougher stance.